Beloved, when it comes to Jesus summoning us from the future to the future, the first person we need to lead into the future is ourselves. Jeremiah 23, the first 6 verses, is a scorching warning against failed, flawed, and faithless leadership. Failed, flawed, faithless leadership. There's no question we're in a leadership crisis in the current culture on every single level. We're watching failed and flawed leadership, both in the culture and in the church. There's so much lack of health. Jeremiah's words are as important now as they were when he uttered them in the days when the kings of the northern and southern kingdoms were so corrupt. Corruption had gotten so wicked amongst the kings after David and Solomon that it was difficult to even recognize God's holiness in the nation because the kings were so compromised. And unhealthy leadership, Jeremiah says, is destructive, and it scatters. It causes division. It causes harm. It neglects the community's needs. It fails in the essential responsibilities of what it means to maintain community. There's a neglect of accountability. I can do whatever I want. I'm a law unto myself. There's an ignoring of consequences of actions and a failure to answer to the needs of the followers, because what matters to the leader is that the leader is taken care of. And then there's a profound sense, because of that, of a misguided vocation. God's not looking for leaders who serve. God's looking for servants who lead. And when we stray from our genuine calling and we use our position for personal gain, we betray our mission and our community. And then there's a lot of professionalizing and privatizing, where leadership is being reduced to mere professional and private matters, neglecting the broader public and ethical responsibilities inherent in the role of leadership. And then there's a horrible sense of arrogance, hubris, pride, and self-righteousness. And what happens there is that leaders that are unhealthy assume a position of superiority and fail to stand under the same judgment as others, and it leads to a profound disconnect between the leader and the community. Unhealthy leaders can't grieve with us. They can't lament with us. They ignore our grief. They ignore our suffering. They ignore the community. They don't share in our pain. It doesn't matter what they say. It matters how they carry themselves. And that leads to a lack of empathy and understanding in those that take their lead. Again, we're watching this in the church culture and in the greater culture in so many ways. Within the church, there's even a misuse of prophetic leadership and authority, making claims about God that have nothing to do with the testimony of Jesus, and promoting personal agendas where those prophetic words serve what they want to accomplish rather than embracing the cross-shaped life. And there's also a failure to address the bigger pictures about the ethical implications of who we are when we testify that we love Jesus, and how that's perceived by the greater public from the outside. Healthy leaders in the body of Christ are accountable to the flock. And I'm saying now to all of us that all of us are leaders because someone's following us somewhere. As families, we're leaders. As parents, we're leaders. As educators, we're leaders. On the workplace, at the job, you're a leader. Somebody's following you somewhere. You have an accountability for those that are part of your community. We need to prioritize the well-being and the unity of those we are serving. We need to avoid actions that scatter or harm those that we're a part of. We need to be faithful to our calling. Peter says that we need to make our calling and election sure. We need to remain true to our call, to our responsibilities, and to ensure that our actions are congruent with God's purpose and mission for our lives. And when we walk, we need to walk justly and do justly and love righteousness and love loyalty and strive to act justly and to act wisely and to make decisions that are fair and carry integrity. We have to recognize we are responsible to the public. What we do matters. What we do has to come from a place of genuine honor and duty and a sense of, I am my brothers and sisters' keeper. And then there's got to be a real prophetic love. That inner life of the Trinity, that bond of love that is endless and ceaseless and streaming and flowing. That passion for God, that passion for what's right, for what's true, for what's just, that mirrors God's love to others because it's embodied in us. And we need to learn how to share one another's sorrows and griefs and laments, weeping with one another when we're going through heartache, and learning how to acknowledge that we're not the only ones suffering, but that others are suffering as well, so that they can know they're not alone. And then the opposite of hubris is humility. Being human, truly human, remaining humble, recognizing our role as servants, those who are yielded to the sacred text and to the community of God and to the greater outside community, and not to place ourselves above others. Beloved, I think in this season, part of deep healing is tied to the fact that we are in a crisis of leadership at every single level in the culture. And God is wanting to heal us. God is wanting to restore us. God is wanting to bring things to a place where there's a non-anxious presence, a corporate non-anxious presence that becomes the vision of what could be, because it is the community of the King, the testimony of Jesus, which is the Spirit, capital S, of prophecy. May God make us that kind of people. May God make each of us those kinds of leaders in our families, in our communities. And may God overshadow the leadership at Church on the Living Edge, so that we too can walk as God calls us to walk, in radical, self-emptying servanthood, in the kenosis of the love that knows no bounds, so that Jesus might be glorified.